Think we're good and we can start. So, hello everyone. I'm your host, Anthony Yang, the committee chair in career development for AYLUS and a sophomore at Watchung Hills Regional High School. AYLUS stands for the Alliance of Youth Leaders in the United States. We are a student-run nonprofit organization dedicated to the advancement of our communities, which means we own houses all across the United States. If you're interested in joining, feel free to check out the AYLUS website that I'll post in the chat. Today, we are with our speaker, Dr. Jiang Liu, who is a partner in Morrison & Foerster's financial services practice in the firm's New York office. Dr. Liu's practice spans a broad range of bank regulatory work, and he has significant experience representing foreign and U.S. financial institutions. He earned his PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology at Emory University in 1997 and graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School in 2001. Dr. Liu has deep knowledge of the regulations applicable to U.S. and global financial institutions and has also represented numerous international financial institutions in the establishment of branches and representative offices in the United States. Welcome, Dr. Liu. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Anthony, for the nice introduction. First of all, let me say thank you for making this happen. It's a lot of work, Anthony, to organize, the committee work and making this happen. So I appreciate what you are doing. And it's an honor to be here today. So Anthony and I discussed very briefly, I'm supposed to make a little bit of self-introduction, then it's really, open forum discussion, whatever questions you guys have, Anthony, and I'm more than happy to answer. So first of all, I want to also thank you, the participants, to dial in tonight. I recall my teenage years. The last thing I want to do is sitting, in a classroom for an hour, listen to something I'm not interested in. So on that, thank you for coming today. So as Anthony said, I studied molecular biology before. When I was in high school, that's just something I was interested in because I was told that's the frontier, that is the future. So I didn't really think about what I wanted to do, in the future. So, biology, that's the future, there you go. So I went to college, studied biology, got my PhD in biochemistry. Only then I decided to go to law school. So one of the questions you may have is why then? Why do you, go to law school, become a lawyer? Or what is your lawyer life is today? So when I was getting my PhD, I was thinking about the future. By then, I'm a little older than a teenager. I was like 27, 28 years old. I thought, well, I'm still young, I'm 28. And I don't want to do one thing for my life. To me, I could be very good at what I'm doing, biology, for the rest of my life, but then what's the point of doing it for 40 years? To me, it's just boring at that point. So I simply decided I wanted to do something that's completely different from what I have been doing, just so that I can live a different life. So for that reason, I decided to go to law school because there's really nothing further from biology than, law. So I went to University of Pennsylvania Law School and became a lawyer 20 years ago. My life is fairly a typical lawyer's life. When, as a junior associate, meaning when you first start at a law firm, you typically work long hours, say 9:30 to maybe 11:30 at night. Not every day, but many days. You do, whatever work that comes through the door, assignments you receive from the partners, from the senior associates. And as I move on, today, my work schedule is slightly better, but still, it's a demanding job. And what I do is I help my clients solve problems, right? This is a complicated legal world. Whatever my clients needed to do in the space I work in, especially financial regulation, financial acquisition, I help them achieve their goals. So I'll stop there. A short introduction. Anthony, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So, like you said, you had a PhD in molecular biology, and you decided to go into law, and I found that really interesting. So, could you give us like an introduction about being a lawyer and what kind of talents you need to do well in your job?
Thank you. I think there's really not a whole lot of requirement other than the most important element would be you take things in your own hands, right? So it's like if you are getting ready to go to the prom night, you probably wanted to, check, am I dressed all right? Is everything perfect? So if you take the same attitude to take care of the work, then that everything will be fine, because all you do is you receive an assignment. Sometimes it's in the format of a question. Sometimes you need to write up a long document. All you need to think about is, okay, I come up with my work product. Now I need to send it to someone, right? So I want to make sure that someone else looks at my work product and say, hey, Jen or Anthony, oh, this is great. It's such a pleasure reading your product. Versus, whoa, there's a typo here. There are 2 spaces after this period, but in that sentence, there are 3 spaces. So immediately by looking at a person's work product, you can tell whether the lawyer has put in, his time and effort. So, take responsibility. That's the single most important element for being a good lawyer.
Yeah, I think that's great. We actually have an early question from Brenda. Her question is, what is a lawyer?
What is a lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay. It can be as simple as your parents wanted to buy a new house, right? Then a lawyer will be drafting the contracts. Sometimes these are standard contracts, but still there are things you can make changes to. The job of a lawyer is really just help 2 parties to achieve a transaction in a predictable, controlled way, and there are no hopefully no unforeseen issues. For example, let's just say, let me give you an example, actually a real world example. In about 100 years ago in North Carolina, there was a county, I think the name is Rockingham County. They were going to build a bridge. It's very simple. This is a small creek. The county just needs a bridge over that creek. So the county commission hired a bridge building company called the Luton Company, L-U-T-E-N, saying, we engage you to build this bridge. So what happens next is the lawyers, drafted a contract saying, we are the county, we engage you to build a bridge for whatever, $25,000, finish in 1 year. So that's, what a lawyer did, right? But then in that case, shortly after the start of the project, the Luton Bridge Company bought, materials, hired laborers. The county told them, no, we don't want the bridge anymore. This is it, stop, So the bridge building company said, wait a second, we just signed the contract. I hired all these people. We bought materials, and you don't want the bridge? No, we're gonna build the bridge. So the company decided to actually finish the bridge. So the bridge is still standing tall today in that county. The company finished building the bridge. So now the question is, what happens? The county said no more bridge, and the company built it anyways. So I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but when I was a first year law student, that was the question I was asked. Oh, what should happen now? So the bridge building company went to the court through their lawyers saying, we had a contract, so we finished the bridge. Now the county must pay for it. The county said, no way, we told you to stop like 18 months ago. We're not gonna pay for the bridge. So what is the just outcome then, right? If you were the company, you feel you're entitled, but if you were the county, you feel like, well, even though I said it, but you only built like 1/10 of the bridge. We tell you to stop, you refuse to stop. So to cut a long story short, the court decided that the way this needs to happen is when they tell you to stop building the bridge, you should stop building the bridge. However, when you enter into the contract, To build a bridge for $25,000, you must have expected to make some money, right? It's not going to cost you 25 to build a bridge. It's going to cost you, let's say, 20. So your profit is $5,000. So what should have happened is you should have stopped building a bridge, and the county will simply pay you your profit, right? You are not going to come out short-handed. You still make a $5,000 profit, but you did not have to make the county incur more damages by building the bridge they didn't want anymore. So that's an example of how law is at work. Sometimes when we think about law, it's about justice. No, it's not necessarily about justice. Law serves a purpose. It serves the economy. In that case, the most sensible solution is the bridge building company should have stopped, but should be made whole in terms of the expected profit. And with that outcome, then the county didn't have to waste more money. So at the end, that was how the case came down.
Yeah, I know everyone has a lot of questions right now, but I'll finish asking the questions I prepared with Dr. Liu, and then at the end of the seminar, I'll read out everyone's questions. So just hold on to your questions for now. Okay, Dr. Liu, a big question here is, what do you enjoy about working as a lawyer?
I enjoy working as a lawyer because I always do things that I don't know answers to. When I was, first starting out as a junior young lawyer, I always felt embarrassed when people ask me, "Oh, Jan, what is this requirement?" I was like, I don't know. I need to do some research. I need to talk to someone. Every time I gave the answer, I don't know, I felt like, I felt the embarrassment. But today, after 20 years on the job, I feel very comfortable telling people, "Oh, I don't know. I need to look it up." It is that element of unknown, keeps me awake. So I like the job because of that. I'm always learning new things.
Nice, I see. So another question is, what are the biggest challenges that students pursuing a law major will face?
The challenge is, I suppose, is really, whether that's who you want to be in the future. Because once you decided, I may want to be a lawyer, the path is very straightforward. You go to college, then you go to law school. 4 years of college, 3 years of law school, that's it. Then you can become a lawyer. The challenge is this something you want to do? You'll be working long hours, and provided if you can find a good law school and then end up with a good big, New York law firm, you will be paid very well. But at the same time, you'll be working very hard. So you have to think about if that's the life you want.
Yeah, since there are definitely many other majors and fields that anyone could work in, being a lawyer is really going to have to you have to put in the work a lot for that field. And another question I have is, how important is it to work with others as a lawyer?
It's very important because we need to discuss, we need to bounce off ideas. And no one is able, generally speaking, to come up with all the answers. Even if you could, it would take you a long time, right? Why don't you stand on each other's shoulder, work as a team? So it's very important to be a team member.
Yeah, I agree. Cooperation definitely holds a big part in almost every major. And I know you did explain a little bit of this in the background, but why did you get into law after earning a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology?
The honest answer is what I just said. I just wanted to live a different life. I was a biochemist. That's good enough. Now I want to be something else, someone else. So I became a lawyer.
Okay. So my next question is, what kind of major should an undergraduate pursue if they want to be a lawyer?
That's a great question. A lot of people ask that, but the answer is it doesn't matter. You can be liberal arts, you can major in East Asian studies, you can major in computer science, math from MIT. I have classmates, law school classmates. You can be, from West Point or Naval Academy. It doesn't matter. Any major is good for law school.
I see. That's great. My next question is, what kind of characteristics do lawyers usually have, and what does success look like in your position?
Um, I think one of the characteristics would be attention to details. I find lawyers, by their profession, I think, they pay more attention to details. Like when I, pick up a piece of paper, whoever wrote up something, I can very quickly spot typos, grammatical mistakes, formatting issues. That's because we're trained to, produce perfect documents. When I see things I don't like, I can just spot it very quickly. So attention to details is a characteristic of being a good lawyer, I want to say. So you don't want to argue with a lawyer because they pay attention to details.
Yeah. And for the second part of the question, what does success look like in your position?
I think there are two aspects of success. That's a very, again, a great question, because different people's definition of success is very different, right? For some people, Elon Musk, right? They want to start up companies, they want to make billions of dollars. Then that's the measurement of success. Then there are other people who sees, social injustice. They want to help reform the prison system. They want to, do things for minorities. So it really depends, if from a lot of people, having a successful career in the law business means you stay on a law firm, uh, 9 years, 10 years, you become a partner, you lead a practice. That's, yeah, successful. But equally successful would be lawyers. They never go into big law practice. They could have made a lot of money, but they didn't. Instead, they work with social services, right? They work with a lot of groups to provide social justice. So they're also extremely successful.
Yeah. Also, could you describe, like, on the topic of success, could you describe a successful work project and how you achieve those results?
Uh, there are many projects. I think one of the most exciting projects I did was helping a Chinese bank, China Merchants Bank, to start a branch in New York. This was back in 2006. At that time, there was no other than the so-called grandfathered, branches, meaning those branches were established a long, long time ago before certain laws and regulations came about. So we filed an application for China Merchants to start a branch in New York. It was the first branch application from China in many, many years. It took us a long time working with the US government, Federal Reserve in this case, to get approval. And once China Merchants Bank got its approval, all the largest Chinese banks, ICBC, Bank of China, not Bank China, China Construction, Agricultural Bank, they all got approvals to start a banking business in the United States. To me, being able to help a large Chinese financial institution to expand into the United States was definitely a highlight of my practice.
Nice. So could you also tell us how you overcame a challenging situation as a lawyer?
I think in most cases, probably not that different from, being an 11th grader or 10th grader. That is, you just have to work hard. You just keep, going at it. You don't give up. And also rely on your teammates.
Nice, I see. Could you also give some advice to high school students who want to pursue law as their major?
Okay. My advice is you don't need to think about any particular subject at the moment. Enjoy your life as a high school student as much as you can. Enjoy your college life. Just take care of LSAT. Try to score as high as you can. Then get into law school. There isn't much you need to do today. Say, oh, maybe I should minor in criminal justice in college. No, you don't need to do any of that. You just do whatever you want to do today. And then when the time comes for you to take LSAT, take it, then apply to good law school.
I see. So since you focus your practice on the financial industry, how did you get the necessary knowledge for that industry?
Most of the things we learn, from the 3 years of law school, most of them are actually not useful at all for real practice. So you may be surprised to hear that, the whole purpose of going to law school is to become a lawyer, correct? But you're not going to be able to learn the things that actually happens in the real world, by and large from law school education. But what the education provides, it trains you how to approach a problem. The best lawyer is not the one who knows the answers. The best lawyer is the one who knows where and how to find the answers. So that's what law school will do to help you.
Okay, so that's great. I think I'll move on to the questions from the audience, since there are quite a lot now. So the first question from Jessica is, how did you choose which area of law to specialize in?
There are obviously two big types. One is called corporate. The other one is called litigation. Corporate means I don't sue somebody, because when you think about law, most people say, oh, there was a car accident, somebody got sued, or so-and-so sued, J&J, for billions of dollars. Those are litigation lawyers, right? When you have car accidents, medical malpractice, or disputes between companies, that's one type. That's not what I do. What I do is I work on matters in which you have two parties. For example, one party wants to buy. I'm currently working on a deal. A bank is selling a branch to another bank. I'm representing the seller. So what I do is I talk to the buyer's lawyer and say, hey, how, your client wants to buy my client's asset, right? So you and I will, write up a contract to determine how the process is going to happen. So that's what I do. So primarily you have litigation, and then you have corporate. And then within the corporate practice, you have many other subject, expertise, right? For example, some people will focus on, you probably heard mergers and acquisition. That means buy, sell companies' assets. Some people will focus on, say, capital markets. That's a term we use to say when the company goes for an IPO, right? For example, Tesla went IPO, maybe I forgot 10 years ago. IPO. Now that's a practice area. There are also lawyers who they only want to do, how to calculate the federal income tax, how to structure a transaction to minimize, tax consequence. So there are different types. In terms of how you find, your own interest, I think it has to do with what your own background leading up to the law school. Some people got into intellectual property because they were, in a math or double E major or biology or chemistry. They felt that engineering, science background would be very helpful to become an IP lawyer, right? Intellectual property rights. But in my own case, I had a science background, but I actually chose not to do intellectual property because, as I said earlier, I wanted to get away as possible from biology as possible. So that's why I became a banking lawyer, but I had no prior banking experience. So it all depends on what you want to do.
Yeah. So the next question from Alex, what is the difference between the legal work you do and the one in the court?
The difference is when people go to court, most people go to court for litigation matters to resolve traffic tickets, for example, or criminal matters, right? Trials, you need lawyers, you argue with each other, you present your case to a judge, to the jurors. So hopefully, you get your outcome. So that's what, they do. Litigation, again, litigation includes litigation between two parties, right? Like, if Anthony and I had a dispute, we can go to court and we'll hire our lawyers. They'll argue, in the court. Or there are sometimes, a person can be charged, right, rightfully or wrongfully, by the United States government, saying you committed, espionage, or you had a trade, secret theft. Then you need to defend yourself. No, this never happened. So lawyers go to court to do those as well.
Great. Yeah. So the next question from Sean, if you had to make an estimate, out of how many cases on average would go to court?
Less than 5%.
And why is that so?
because it's so expensive, so time consuming. That's why most cases end up being settled.
Okay, I see. The next question from Brenda is LGBTQ rights important for lawyers?
Yes, it's important for basically every part of the society. So yes, it is very important.
Yeah. And from Jono, how do you become a lawyer? What's the hardest part and most important part? And how hard is the LS18?
I already discussed why I became a lawyer. The most difficult part is, I guess, two parts. One is getting into a good law school, right? So, I mean, if you could go to Harvard Law School, you probably don't want to go to, I don't know, Rutgers Law School. Nothing bad about Rutgers Law School, by the way, okay? But, you know, if you could, right? So you should try to get into a good law school because the job perspective will be very different from a law school that's ranked outside top 20 in the country. That's one thing. Then, you know, yeah, LSAT, right? How difficult? I think it is not that difficult. It was difficult for me because English was not my first language. So I had to study the language in order to be able to take the test, right? So it's not that hard. It's probably, I want to say maybe same as SAT minus math. There's no math in the LSAT.
Yeah, that's great. So the next question from Yinkun Tang. Hi, Dr. Liu. I'm wondering why you chose the financial field rather than the intellectual property field, which seems to closely match your background.
Yeah, precisely for the reason I want to be away from science, you know, as far as possible. I want to do something different. So, and it also happened that in my first few years being a lawyer, I worked on bank IPOs and insurance company IPOs. So my clients are naturally financial institutions. And I, you know, grew very interested in financial regulations because they're so complicated and so important. You know, big banks, small banks, you know, investment banks, sometimes there's not much they can do unless they figure out what they can do under the law. So, and I feel whatever I'm doing today is helping them get through the complicated, you know, network of regulations to achieve their goals. So that's why I enjoy working with financial institutions.
Yeah, a personal question from me is like, I'm wondering, how come you got tired of like biology and how come you wanted to change?
Well, I certainly hope that's not something you will learn from me. I hope you all like what you are doing in college and continue to do that. This is an honest answer. It's just me. I feel like, you know, when I was 28, I felt like, well, I only live once, right? I'm not going to be 100 years old. I'm not even going to be 90. I may live to 80. There's just so many years left. That's it. So I've spent about 10 years in biology. To me, that's enough. I want to do something else. I don't want to tell my grandchildren that, well, your granddaddy had been a biochemist, period. I want to tell them, oh, your grandfather had been a biochemist, a lawyer, a banker, and something else. So maybe change is coming up, you know, in the next few years for me too, again.
Mm-hmm. And a question from Carol. Could you describe your daily routine at work as a lawyer?
A daily routine would involve, you know, I wake up, sometimes not necessarily like 7:30 in the morning, even in the middle of the night. I would just take a very quick look at my email to see, you know, whether there are important email messages. Typically, there will be, you know, anywhere between 30 to 50 emails overnight coming in, and you need to address, you know, take priorities, address the questions, and assign, you know, the work to different associates that work for me to get answers. So a typical day would start like that, and then I will do my own work. I will review other people's work. I will have conference calls, like sometimes Zoom calls, sometimes audio calls. So that would be a typical day.
And those calls are like mentioning like what type of like things are described in those calls?
There are two types generally. One is you have a call with your own client. You know, you discuss a strategy. You discuss what's the requirement, what's the law, how can we structure our transaction in the most efficient manner. And the second type would be have a call with the other side. I mean, every transaction has two sides, right? You cannot have a transaction with yourself. So we'll discuss with the other side. Sometimes that would involve negotiations, arguments. Sometimes it can be confrontational, but it's never as confrontational as it would be if you were to go to court to argue litigation matters.
I see. So also a question from James: how do you become a partner in a law firm? A law firm.
There are two aspects for partners to happen. One is you need to be, good at what you are doing, right? As a technical matter. For example, at any big law firm, every year we hire over 100 students, okay, from law school. So on my first day, with a big law firm, I was telling myself, we just got 120 new people coming in today, right? But how come the law firm size is always 800? If next year another 120 come in, wouldn't that itself be 240? So quickly I realized for every 120 coming in per year, generally speaking, there's about 110, 120 going out. So if you cannot perform, chances are they will let you go. And also, obviously, there are natural other reasons: relocation, family, change of interest. So there is a pretty high attrition rate at big law firms.
I see.
That's the first part. That is, I apologize.
Oh, no,
that is the first part to, you need to be good, right? I mentioned you have 20 people, 120 coming in. So if I'm a partner today. So when I look at junior lawyers work product, like I said, if I have two, memos written by two different associates, I can always tell which memo is better. Then the, better written ones, I tend to think, oh, this person is more careful, pay more attention to details. I tend to pay more attention then to this associate, right, for future development. So doing good work is very important.
Yeah, so attention to detail is very important in these type of cases. So a question from Nick. I know you mentioned earlier that any major could prepare for a legal career, but what major or minor would you recommend to someone who wants a basic foundation in law, even if they are not entirely sure what exact area of legal study they want to go to, such as criminal, corporate, IP laws?
I think one aspect it would be accounting. I know there'll be no accounting courses in high school, but in college, if you could take one or two accounting courses, it's very helpful. The others, I can't really, well, if you want to be, at least if you'll be a corporate lawyer, that is, you may not, get into courts to argue litigation matters, corporate finance, understand how an American corporation, work. Corporate finance, accounting, those would be very important, to me.
Okay. Also, what does the general career path look like for a lawyer? So, for example, do they intern at a law firm while they study as a postgrad, or like what happens after their postgrad is complete?
The typical career path is you go to college, then either you work for a few years or you go straight to law school, doesn't matter. After 3 years, you find a job at a law firm. You'll start out as a first-year associate. Typically, the associate shelf life is 8 to 10 years, meaning you need to make partner in 8 to 10 years, or you got a special title, not partner, but they let you stay. Otherwise, either you want to, they'll let you go, or more often you find other opportunities are more interesting, right? You will move on to other opportunities to become, for example, investment banker, right? To become, a private equity person, or to join, nonprofit. It all depends on your own interest, but that's a very typical career path.
Nice. So another question from Sean. What types of industries do lawyers make the most, the least, and when do you decide your profession or field?
Are you asking make most meaning money-wise, or?
I think like the industry that most lawyers are able to get into.
Oh, I think um, compared to other majors, right? You think computer science or physics or East Asian studies. Law is so intertwined with our whole society. We don't really have a major. Everybody goes to the same type of law school. We don't have majors. So as a lawyer, you can work in the telecom industry for telecommunication companies. You can work in the pharmaceutical industry for pharmaceutical clients because the underlying principles are the same. It doesn't really matter whether your client is in a particular industry.
Nice. Yeah. So, another question from Nick. How feasible is it to study for both an MD and a JD if I wanted to get into medical law?
It is feasible. I think I have run into a few people who have JDs and who also have MDs. It's challenging, but it's doable. I see more JD MBAs. I see less JD MDs, but I know a few of them. Yeah.
Could you describe what a JD is?
A Jewish doctor. It's basically you go to law school 3 years. You got a JD degree.
I see. Okay. A question from Carrie. Can I go into law if my major is linguistics?
Absolutely, there are plenty of lawyers who have majors in that.
Yeah. I definitely feel like linguistics, like English related things, are very helpful for law.
Absolutely, very helpful.
Yeah. So, thank you all for asking these questions. Please feel free. We'll give you. I'll leave the meeting open for 5 more minutes. See if there's any more questions that you would like to ask Dr. Liu. If there are, please put them in the chat or raise your hand if you want to and personally talk with them. So we have a question from Rachel. What kind of study would go into the field of international law?
That's a good question because not all lawyers will have to be international, right? So I happen to practice international law because one case I mentioned earlier is a cross-border financial regulatory issue. If you focus on litigation matters, commercial litigation, there's just less chance of that being international unless you want it to be. I mean, corporate disputes happen not only for U.S. corporations, right? It's an international world these days. There are plenty of disputes between U.S. and foreign corporations. For example, our law firm, we have 17 offices on a worldwide basis, and we have most of our litigators work in the United States, but some of them work in Hong Kong, in London, in Berlin. So we have litigators around the world because there are disputes. In addition to dispute matters, you also have, for example, corporate internal investigation, Foreign Corrupt Practice Act related matters. There you also need lawyers. So if you join a firm with a global footprint, chances are, even if you only want to do litigation, you can be international. But if you want to do corporate work like what I do, transactional matters, you tend to be able to do more international work compared to litigation.
Yeah. Another question from Maggie. How's the job market for international law?
I want to say there are ups and downs, but overall, if you have the right skill set, you're open-minded, it's pretty good. And if you have some expertise, language-wise, cultural background, that could also be very helpful.
So when you talk about skill set, like what type of skills regarding that?
I mean, for example, if a lawyer, you would only be able to speak English versus someone who spoke, English and Spanish, right? Then they would be at, a more advantageous position in terms of picking up international work compared to you. So language is important for international work, but it's not required. But in the competitive world, when you have two lawyers in front of you, one is bilingual, the other one is not, then the one with bilingual will definitely have more opportunities.
I see. So learning another language will definitely be helpful in international law. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, I'll end it here. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And thank you all.
May I have just one word?
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm a parent. Actually, I can say Dr. Liu, Mr. Liu said, there's one other become a lawyer. You possibly thinking maybe become a lawmaker, politician. You can also so many politician actually from lawyer. And politician means president, lawmakers. As a Chinese American, we definitely need that's definitely needed. Okay, that's what I'm thinking. And be a lawyer. Like I talk to my son. You want to be a doctor? You really want to be a doctor? Why really you want to be a doctor? If you really want helping people, you're thinking you'll feel satisfied, fulfilled after you helping people, then become doctor. And of course, when you become a good doctor, money come with you. Don't put the money on the first. And lawyers too. Okay, lawyer is really important in the society. So many regulations, so many things with changing. So become lawyer, we really it's a good career. And also thinking you are helping people. Okay, yeah, you really when you have a client, you are helping them. Okay, then money comes with it. About the skills in middle school, high school, pay attention to your public speaking skills. Okay, training that. All right. Even you don't want you probably don't from the clubs. You don't get the number one, number two from the competition or public speaking or a debate team or something. That's okay. But it's training you speak skills. Those are also important when you become a lawyer. Okay, thank you. That's just my opinion. Okay, good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I have two children. My daughter is going to be a third year at Brown. My son is going to be a 11th grader, and none of them wants to be a lawyer. So follow your own interest is more important. Whatever you want to do, you are young, go pursue it.
Yeah. So everyone, yeah, thank you again just for coming. I hope everyone just learned how the path to becoming a lawyer, and just make sure to keep these words in mind and check out the AYLUS website if you haven't. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.